Hey, this is Pablo with Meditation Amsterdam. In this video, I want to talk about a certain choice that we have to make at some point. Some people make it unconsciously and have a sort of maturation process by doing that. Others have to work at it on purpose. Now, if you think all these topics are cool and you think the channel has good content, give me a subscribe, give me a like, because it always helps to motivate, continue making stuff. So back to the whole pain discussion. In our early years, as we're developing and as we don't yet have all the tools to negotiate the different kind of situation that life can throw at you, we make an unconscious move to disassociate from the bare reality of the now. And what we essentially do is our mind realizes that the discomfort that certain situations bring to us as babies or toddlers or even as a kid is too much to handle, so it disconnects from them. And having realized that it can disassociate and create a little mental world in which it can live without having to come in contact with a lot of the discomforts of life, or at least not in direct contact with them. This little trick starts to replicate itself, and it starts to get a momentum of its own, so that the development of an egoic personality, which is the basis of any personality as such, is one that could be fundamentally considered a disassociative move from direct reality. Now, this is a necessary step because there are no other tools. So it's the kind of the equivalent of the ostrich burying its head in the sand, because really it's unbearable to face what's happening. And what ends up happening is that at some point, that strategy, which pays off in the short term, because there is a payoff to disassociating, starts to take its toll in the kind of decisions that we make in our life, the kind of situations that we get into, but more importantly, in the general feel that life has for us. See, the more you disassociate, the more you live in your mind, and the more you disassociate from direct sensory perception, the more life starts to acquire a certain miasmic and disassociated, obviously, feel to it. Like, I think in philosophy, they call it alienation. And so you start to feel alienated from life because really you are alienated or disassociated from your perceptual reality. And there's no difference between life and your perceptual reality. It's one and the same, of course. So at some point, that strategy starts to take too big a toll, and you start to feel it, but you can't put your finger on what is it that's wrong, because this is the only mode of mind that you know. Now, if you are familiar with the content in the channel and some other self-discovery, self-realization type of work, a lot of them talk about being in the now, sort of entering in a sensory way, entering your peripheral reality and kind of becoming one with it. And what starts to happen when we sit to meditate or when our minds are quiet is we start often feeling pangs of loneliness or just anxiety and so on. And that's because we are simply not used to being in bare contact with reality, where there is no real notion of control, and there is no personality or mental tactics mediating between reality and ourselves, but we're in direct contact with. So that feels extraordinarily uncomfortable for someone who has not done it for a long time. And at that point, there is a certain dance that begins. We begin to try to be in the now, in contact with reality, observing our minds, our emotions, and we start to feel the discomfort of that. But then when you disassociate, you start to feel the discomfort of the alienation and the unfulfillment. So now it feels like you're kind of between a rock and a hard place. And it takes a long time to train the mind to understand that the discomfort of entering the now and being in direct contact with this, with your sensory reality, is intense, but it is temporary, and it is something that will taper over time the more we are used to being in the now, being directly in touch with. Whereas the discomfort of that sort of alienated miasma that develops when you are in your head all the time, that's a discomfort that only gets bigger and more unhealthy, right? So at that point, once you understand this dynamic, you come to realize that you really are, you need to choose your poison at that point, in that particular what would you call it, stage, or that particular moment of your self-cultivation project. So you come to realize you got to choose your pain, you got to choose your poison. One pain keeps you comfortable but stuck in this feeling of, you know, going nowhere and not being fulfilled. The other pain confronts you with an uncontrollable, vague reality that you've never been completely in touch with, and which, you know, makes the hair on the back of your neck stand on end. So it feels like a lose-lose situation, but understanding, first of all, getting a feel for those two types of psychological pain, right? One has this sticky, kind of sticky momentum. It's kind of circular, repetitive, and it's kind of this downer. The other one feels like your hair is on fire. All right, so it's like, oh my God, I can barely stand this, but you at the same time, you've never felt so alive, because you're like, it's like a roller coaster type of thing. So they each have their own distinctive flavor to them. Now, we've been taught to put both of those in a single bucket called emotional discomfort, dysphoria, ego dystony, or whatever we want to call it. But learning to discern which of these you're dealing with is super important. And equally important it is to understand that, as I said, one, by virtue of its unclarity, repetitiveness, and momentum, keeps you stuck. The other one is, and it only gets worse, the other one is temporary. It is good pain, is growth pain, is the kind of pain that you would feel in the gym if you went for, for a session of like proper squats or whatever. So you feel this pain and it's intense, but there's a purpose to it, and there's a gradual relationship that changes with that pain. When you realize that every time you have an opening or a, processing of that kind of pain, there's more clarity coming up, and you start to feel truly alive. Although it's scary like hell, you would not want to revert at some point to that other kind of pain, because it feels is like a disease, right? So that's the distinction you could make, is your legs could hurt because you have like thrombosis and you've been like sedentary your whole life. That's one type of leg pain. The other kind of leg pain is the one you get at the gym when you're working out, and there is a difference between those two, a qualitative difference. And there is a difference in the kind of understanding that you have about them, the kind of frame that each of them evokes, and how we are trying to retrain our minds to go away from the miasmic, stuck kind of pain into the kind of pain that is transformative. So you have to essentially choose your discomfort, choose your poison, but understanding the difference between those two makes a world of difference. And I hope that invites you to start learning about the kind of discomfort that you feel and the source of it, and develop this relationship to that moves you towards feeling the kind of being in touch with type of pain, as opposed to the avoidant type of pain. So hope that helps. I'll be back with more. Cheerio.